Hi, welcome to Sopedia. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make these beautiful Victorian corsets. So if this is what you're interested in, just stay back and watch this video to the end. And do not forget to subscribe, like this video, share to your friends, and turn on your notification bell so that whenever I post nice tutorial like this, you'll get instant updates. Here's a custom-made bra cup that I'll be using for this Victorian corset. So if you want me to show you how to make this cup, let me know in the comment section. I've ironed my hairstay to the fabric as well as the lining. So this is the sewing process of this Victorian corset. If you are yet to see the part 1 of this tutorial, you'll find the link of the part 1 in the description of this video. So you can watch the cutting process first before you come back to watch the sewing tutorial. I'm just trying to arrange the front part of this dress here. If you make mistake while arranging this, it's advisable you pin down your pattern paper onto your fabric before arranging them. I will place this piece over the middle one and sew using 0.75 seam allowance. I'll do the same for this and also this. I will repeat the process all through the front part. Now this is the back. The back comes in 2 parts, so I'm just going to arrange them accordingly. Next, I'll place this one over the middle one and sew using 0.75 inches, and I'll do the same for the other side. I use 0.75 inch for the seam allowance instead of 0.5 inch because I'm going to be running my boning channel across my seam allowance. I've gone ahead to sew all the pieces together. I've ironed out my seam allowance properly and I've also run my boning channels. I stitched 2 boning channels onto one seam. That is, every seam will have 2 boning channels because the boning that I'll be using is the smaller one, the one of about 5 millimeter. And this is the lining. I've also ironed out on my seam, and here is the bra cup. I'm going to place this bra cup onto the lining this way, and I'm going to sew the bra cup onto it. Next is the making of the sleeve. Now this is the sleeve that I'm going to be using. I really do not know what to call this, but I think I just decided to make this. First, I made a tiny strap wide enough to fit in my boning. The boning I'm using for this sleeve is the regular boning. That's the one you can sew directly on. The length of each of these is 7 inches. And I have 5 pieces for each sleeve. I've sewn the first one. Next, I'm going to pass the second one into the first one like this, and I'll take this to the machine and sew onto this. So I'm just trying to show you what the boning looks like, the one I'm using for this sleeve. After sewing the second one, I will pass the third one like so, and I'm going to sew onto it. Then I'll pass the 4th and the 5th and sew all of them. I'm done sewing this and I'm trying to cut out the excess boning. After cutting that out, I will use a very small piece of strap to cover up the rough edges. So I've just gotten the desired measurement I want to cover this up. I'll wrap this around this ring. After wrapping this round, I'll fold the edge of this piece inward and I'm going to sew onto it using my needle. After sewing the first one, I will proceed to sewing the other 4 rings as well. Once I'm done with the first sleeve, I'm going to cover up the second sleeve with this tiny strap. I'm done covering all of the edges and look what we have here. Next, I'm still going to use this tiny strap at the ends of this ring. That's the part that will be sewn into the dress. I won't be sewing the rings onto the dress. I'll be sewing the tiny ends. Here is the lining. I've gone ahead to sew the bra cup onto it, and this is what it looks like on the right side. Next is to sew the sleeve into the dress. So I have 2 thin straps and I have my rings. One part of this dress will have 1 ring and 1 strap, and the other parts will have 1 ring and 1 strap as well. From this part of the dress, which is the bust pan area, I'm going to mark 1.5 inch away from there, and I'm going to place my strap this way, then pin it down. I'll place the ring one as well and pin that down also. Once I'm done pinning the front parts, I'll head to the back area and I'll place my strap and pin it down. I'll do the same for the ring. So when this side is done, I'll move to the other side of the dress and pin both the ring and the strap down onto this dress. Now that I have pinned the sleeves in place, the next is to sew the top part of this dress. So I'm going to place my lining this way and I'll sew round on it. I'll ensure every seam of the lining aligns with the seam of the main fabric. Then I'm just going to sew all through the top parts. I'm done sewing the top part. Next, I'm going to fix my loops to this dress. So the length of this strap that I'll be using for my loops is 2.5 inches. I'll be making use of 1.5 inches for the distance between each loops. So I'm going to cut the required number of loops that I want. So I'll be fixing my loops in this way. This method is optional. You can fix your loops this way, or you can pin down your loops directly onto the main fabric before using the lining to turn them. I will do the same for the other side of this dress. I'm done sewing the sides and fixing my loops. Next, I'm going to notch all the top area, especially the parts that has curves and those parts with edges. So you can either notch or you trim off the excess seam allowance. So once I'm done notching, I'm just going to turn this dress to the right side. And here is what a Victorian corset looks like. I'm going to run 2 boning channels on this part of this dress and I will stop an inch right above the bottom of this dress. I'll come to the side and also run 2 boning channels and ensure I stop an inch just right above the bottom of this blouse. I'm done sewing my boning channels, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side, and this is what it looks like. See, I told you I won't run it down to the bottom of the dress, so I still have about an inch space there. Next is for me to pass the boning through the boning channel. Before I pass the boning, I'll use my scissors to shaping out the tip of this boning so that it will be smooth to eliminate sharp edges. You can make use of your lighter to melt out those edges, but I'm just going to use scissors. Also, when passing your boning through the channel, make sure the boning is 1 inch shorter than the length of your dress, or is shorter than the length of your boning channel, so that when you want to sew the hem of the dress, you won't be faced with obstacles. So I decided to slow this part down so you can see what I'm doing. After fixing the boning, I'm just going to pull it out a little so that I can cut about 1 inch because I want it to be shorter than the length of my boning channel. Each seam has 2 boning channels, so I'll be fixing 2 boning into the 2 channels. Remember, when making your channels, you do not want to make them too tight so that you can easily pass your bonings through them. So I'm done passing my bonings and I've flipped this to the wrong side. Next, I'm going to sew the hem. So I'm going to use the lining to turn the main fabric. Now from this end, I'm going to leave about 2 inches before sewing. So from that 2 inches, I will sew down to this part, also leaving 2 inches. So I've gone ahead to sew the hem and I've opened this part up. This is what we use to turn the dress. Do not forget to subscribe, like and share this video. Now I'm done turning the dress. This is the 2 inches I was talking about that I didn't sew. I'm going to fold this part inward this way and sew on it. I'll fold the other parts as well and sew on it. Then to the lining, I'll fold this opened area inward too, and I'm going to sew this close. After that, next I'll be doing is to sew the rose and the petals. First of all, I'm going to draft the petals. I'll be using 3.5 inches for the length of the petals. After marking that, I'm just going to roll a straight line like so. Then I'm going to mark the midpoint of this 3.5 inches. I'm just going to fold my tape this way to get the midpoint. Thereafter, on this line, I'm going to mark 1 inch there. Then I'll go to the midpoint and mark 1.5 inches. After that, I'm just going to connect this way using a curved line. I'll use a marker so the lines can be visible. After highlighting this, I'll just go ahead and cut it out. So here we have the drafted petal. Next, I'll use this as a guide to cut out my fabric. But while cutting, I'm going to leave about 0.5 inch for the seam allowance. I'll pin the paper down to my fabric, then proceed to cutting out the fabric petal. So here are the cut out petals that I have. I have 20 petals here, and 10 will be for one rose, 10 will be for another. Now, of the 10, 5 will be used as the lining to turn the other 5. So at the end of the day, I'll be left with just 10 petals, 5 for one rose and 5 for the other once I'm done sewing. This is how I'm going to sew these petals. I will leave the down open. Next is the measurement for the rose. The width is 8.5, while the length is 38 inches. I have 2 cutout fabrics for the rose, since I'll be making 2. Next, I'm going to fold this rose this way. I'll fold it into 2 like this. Then I'm going to run a gather stitch, that's a running stitch, onto this. But before then, I will sew this edge and turn it. I will sew the other edge as well before running my gather stitch. I'll do the same thing for the other rows. After this, I'm just going to make my base for the petals. This is where I'll be sewing my petals onto. So I use my paper to cut out a small circle, then use that to cut my fabric as well. I didn't add any allowance to this because this size is actually okay. I'm going to sew from this part to this part, then I'll leave just a tiny space so I can turn this base from that space. I'm gonna head to sew the petals and the bases for these petals. I have 5 petals here. Then I'll place the base in the middle. I've sewn my gather stitch onto this rose, so I'm just going to pull the thread to make my gathers. After that, I'm going to sew on these gathers with my needle. I will sew to keep the gathers in place. You can make use of your sewing machine, you run a stitch on it just to secure it in place. After securing this in place, I will begin to turn this in a spiral motion. As I turn, I will tack down. As I turn, I will tack it down. So I'll keep doing this in a spiral motion, tacking it down so that it doesn't move. I'm done with the rose. Next is to sew the petals onto this base. At the bottom of each petal, I'm going to make a kissing pleat there, just a very small kissing pleat. Then I'll pin down the pleated area. After pinning down all the pleated areas of these petals, I will just go ahead and sew them directly onto the base. So after sewing the petals, I'll place my rose on it. Now I'm done sewing the petals. I will just go ahead and tack this rose onto my petals. I'm done tacking the rose, so I have 2 of them here. Next is to place them onto this Victorian corset like this. So if you're yet to subscribe to my channel, kindly hit that subscribe button, like and share this video, and don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you get updates anytime I post new videos. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.